I've been driving the I-70 corridor for 11 years, 1,500 miles a week, sometimes more. You get to know a stretch of highway the way you know a person, its moods, its rhythms, the way the asphalt hisses different when the temperature drops below 40. You stop noticing the mile markers after a while. They just blur into the dark like everything else. That night, I was hauling refrigerated freight out of Kansas City. 42 feet of frozen chicken, a full tank, and a thermos of burnt coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since Tuesday. The storm had been building for 2 hours, that particular kind of Missouri storm that doesn't announce itself until it's already got you. Rain coming sideways. Visibility down to maybe 100 feet, the kind of night where you grip the wheel a little tighter and you don't change the radio station because the familiarity of a bad song is better than static. I remember thinking how quiet the cab felt, not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. Like the world outside had been switched off and someone forgot to tell me. The coffee had gone cold. I hadn't touched it. I don't know when I noticed the smell. That's the thing about slow realizations. You can never pinpoint the exact moment. But somewhere around mile marker 31, there was something in the cab that hadn't been there before. Not strong, not obvious. Just a low, damp note underneath everything else. Like old upholstery left in the rain. Like something that had been wet for a very long time and never properly dried. I told myself it was the storm. Moisture getting in somewhere. I told myself a lot of things that night. He was standing on the shoulder just past the 22 overpass. No rain gear, no bag, both arms at his sides. Not thumbing a ride, just standing there like he'd been planted. My headlights caught him for maybe 3 seconds before I'd already made the decision to stop. 11 years of driving, and I've picked up maybe 4 people. Something that night made it 5. He climbed in without a word, and I got my first good look at him under the dome light. Mid-40s, pale in the way that goes beyond complexion, the kind of pale that looks like color has been slowly leaching out for years. Clothes dry, which shouldn't have been possible. His hair was dry. I remember staring at that. Outside, the rain was hard enough to flood a ditch in 10 minutes, and this man looked like he'd stepped out of an air-conditioned room. Hell of a night to be out, I said. He looked at the windshield. It's always this kind of night out here. I let that sit. Some people are just strange. Strange doesn't mean dangerous. I've learned to give people room to be whatever they are. He didn't blink right. I noticed it maybe 10 minutes in. It wasn't that he stared. It was more like his blinks were manually timed. Too long, too deliberate, like someone had described blinking to him once and he was following instructions. I focused on the road. He focused on the CB radio. Does that work? He asked first full sentence he'd put together. When it wants to, I said. Signal's been garbage since the storm rolled in. He nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something. Can I? I should have said no. I don't know why I didn't. I just reached over and clicked the squelch loose and handed it to him. He didn't put it to his mouth. He just held the handset in his lap and started turning the channel dial. Slow, methodical. Like he was looking for a specific frequency, the way you'd look for a specific face in a crowd. The static changed character. I can't explain it better than that. It went from white noise to something textured, something with depth, and then, through the grain of it, a voice, broken up, frightened. Southbound, I-70, something in the road. Can anyone? Mile marker 9. Repeat, mile marker. A truck crash. Old transmission maybe. Interference from the storm bouncing a signal off the atmosphere. I'd heard stranger things on a CB. Then he started whispering, not responding. Whispering the words a half second before they came through the radio. Can't stop the rig, the static said. He had already mouthed it, silently, perfectly. My hands tightened on the wheel. My chest did something I can only describe as a slow collapse inward. Not panic, not yet. Just the animal part of my brain registering that something was deeply, fundamentally wrong, and beginning the quiet process of screaming. How did you do that? I said. It wasn't a question. My voice came out flat, because I was using everything I had to keep it from shaking. He didn't answer. He was already whispering the next transmission. 3 more voices, 3 different men, all of them terrified, all of them calling for help from somewhere nearby, from somewhere on this exact stretch of road. And all of them, I realized this slowly and then all at once, using CB codes that went out of rotation in the early 2000s. Not recordings. The panic was too raw for recordings. The way a man's voice breaks when he's genuinely afraid, you can't manufacture that. You can't fake the specific frequency of a human being who believes they are about to die. They were live. They were just not now. I kept driving because stopping felt more dangerous than moving. The rain had gotten worse. The road ahead was just 2 tunnels of yellow light, and then nothing. Mile marker 14 went past, then 13, then 12. Who are you? I said. He He turned and looked at me for the first time since he'd gotten in. His eyes were fine, normal. That was almost the worst part. I'd been expecting something wrong with his eyes, and they were just eyes. Just a man looking at me with something that might have been pity. "You shouldn't have stopped," he said. "You're telling me that now?" "I've been telling you since Kansas City," he said quietly. "You just couldn't hear it yet." And then the light at the junction of Route 9 went red, and I stopped. And I turned to say something. I don't even know what. And the seat was empty. The door hadn't opened. The cab hadn't moved. The seat was dry, and there was no impression in the vinyl. No residual warmth. No evidence that any human body had ever occupied that space. The dome light wasn't on. The CB crackled. One transmission. Clear as a voice in an empty room. Southbound I-70. "This is Unit 447. I can't, somebody tell my wife. Mile marker 9. I can't stop the rig. I can't." I knew the voice. I have known my own voice for 43 years. The transmission cut to static. The light turned green. I drove. I don't remember deciding to drive. I just drove. Both hands locked on the wheel. Breathing through my nose in slow counts of 4, the way my father taught me when I was 8 years old and afraid of thunderstorms. Mile marker 11. Mile marker 10, mile marker 9 came up in the headlights, and I was already past it before my body understood what my eyes had seen. The guardrail was destroyed, fresh, metal peeled back like paper, tire marks gouged into the shoulder, and at the base of the embankment, just visible in the sweep of my headlights before the road curved away, the cab of an 18-wheeler, nose down in the ditch, same model as mine, same color. I didn't stop. God help me, I didn't stop. I drove until I hit a truck stop outside of Columbia, and I sat in the parking lot for 2 hours, with every light in the cab burning until the sun came up. I filed a report, gave them the mile marker. They found the wreck, said it was fresh, said it was consistent with a blowout at highway speed, said the driver hadn't been located. They never asked me how I knew where to look. I quit the run 3 days later, took a local route, short haul, home every night. But here's what keeps me awake. The smell is still there sometimes. In my own truck, late at night on a quiet road, that low, damp note, old upholstery, something wet that never dried. And last week I caught myself reaching for the CB radio. I hadn't touched one in 4 months. My hand was already on the dial before I realized I was doing it. I don't know what frequency I was looking for. I'm afraid I'm starting to remember. I've been driving long haul for 11 years. Nevada at 2 a.m. is my church. Empty highway, black sky. The low hum of the engine filling up the silence so your thoughts don't have to. I know every mile marker between Elko and Las Vegas the way some men know their own backyard. I know where the road dips near mile 214. I know the radio dies somewhere past Tonopah. I know the smell of the cab after 8 hours. Burnt coffee from the thermos wedged between the seats. Old vinyl. And that faint diesel ghost that never fully leaves your clothes. That night I was running a standard freight haul. Nothing special in the trailer. Nothing special about the route. I'd done it maybe 200 times. I had a podcast running, some true crime thing my daughter recommended, and a gas station burrito sitting in my gut like a bad decision. The dashboard clock read 2:17 a.m. Outside, the desert was flat and absolute. The kind of dark that makes you feel like the highway is the only thing left in the world. I was comfortable. That's the thing I keep coming back to. I was completely, totally comfortable. And then I felt cold. Not the cab cold you get when the heat stutters. This was different, localized. Like someone had pressed a single cold hand against the back of my neck and held it there. I reached up and rubbed the spot. Nothing. I turned the heat up one notch and told myself it was the Nevada altitude doing what it always does. I took a sip of cold coffee and watched the mile markers pass. The sign appeared at 2:31 a.m. I almost missed it. It sat just far enough into my peripheral vision that my brain nearly filed it under background noise, the way your eyes skip over things at highway speed. But something made me look. Some small animal part of me that was already paying attention before the rest of me caught up. White sign, green reflective lettering, standard highway font, your rest stop. No exit number, no town name, no mileage indicator. Just those 3 words, and an off-ramp curving away into total darkness. I kept driving. I told myself it was a private truck stop. Unmarked ones exist. I'd seen a few over the years. I told myself the font just looked weird because I was tired. I turned the podcast up and watched the sign shrink in my side mirror until it disappeared. By mile 240, I'd almost forgotten it. I noticed the exit again at 2:58 a.m. Same sun, same curve, same absolute darkness beyond the ramp. Your rest stop. I hit the brakes harder than I meant to. The trailer groaned behind me. I sat there on the shoulder for a moment, hazards ticking, staring at the ramp in my mirror. 30 miles. I'd driven 30 miles, and the same exit had appeared again. I pulled up the GPS. The screen showed nothing at that location. No rest stop, no private facility, no road, just desert. The blue line of the highway ran clean and uninterrupted. GPS glitch, I thought. Signal bounce. The Nevada desert does weird things to electronics. I'd had maps freeze before, reroute me in circles, lose signal for 40 miles at a stretch. I'd heard other drivers talk about it. It was a known thing. I pulled back onto the highway. But here's what I didn't let myself think about. Not really, not until later. A GPS glitch doesn't put a physical sign on a physical road. The third time, I pulled off. I don't fully remember deciding to. That's the honest truth of it, and I know how that sounds. One moment I was in the left lane, doing 74, and the next I was slowing down, and the turn signal was on, and my hands were already completing the turn like they'd been planning it without consulting me. The gravel crunched under the tires. The headlights swept across a parking lot, and there was the diner. Low building, buzzing neon sun, desert rose, with the S flickering. Two other vehicles in the lot, a Buick with a cracked rear window and a pickup that looked like it hadn't been washed in a decade. Warm yellow light leaked from the windows. I could see a figure moving behind the glass. I checked the clock. 3:22 a.m. I told myself I needed coffee. I told myself my eyes were getting heavy. I told myself this was exactly what rest stops were for. I did not tell myself why my hands had been shaking since I turned off the highway. The smell hit me when I opened the door. Not diner smell, not grease and syrup and burned coffee. Something underneath that, something sweet and wrong, like fruit left too long in a warm room. I almost turned around. I almost did. The interior was a time capsule. Formica countertops, vinyl stools with the chrome worn through, a jukebox in the corner playing something slow and instrumental that I didn't recognize. Photographs on the walls, desert landscapes, all in that faded amber tone of 1980s film. A small TV mounted above the counter showing static, volume low. A woman stood behind the counter, late 50s maybe, gray hair pinned back, white apron. She was looking at me before the bell above the door finished ringing, looking at me like she'd seen me pull in and had been waiting for the sound of the door. Figured you'd come in this time, she said. I stopped. Sorry? Sit anywhere, hon. She was already reaching for the coffee pot. I sat at the counter. My legs sat me there. I'm still not sure I chose it. She slid the coffee across without me asking. Then she looked at me with an expression I can only describe as patient, the way a person looks when they've been waiting a long time and they're just relieved the waiting is finally over. Long run tonight, she said. It wasn't a question. Elko to Vegas, she nodded. You should have stopped hours ago. You know that. Something cold moved through my chest. How do you know my route? She smiled, not warmly. You've been by 3 times tonight, sweetheart. The first time you didn't see us. Second time, you saw the sign and kept going. She tilted her head slightly. Third time, you finally stopped. The jukebox skipped. The static on the TV shifted. I started to stand. I need to get back on the road. Of course, she said, still smiling. Your truck's out front. The parking lot was dark when I pushed through the door. The neon sign buzzed behind me. My boots crunched on the gravel, and I pulled out my keys and walked toward the rig, and I put my hand on the door, and it was cold. Not cold like metal gets cold in the night air. Cold like something that hasn't been running. Cold like a vehicle that has been sitting for a very long time. I climbed up into the cab. Same thermos, same podcast, paused mid-sentence, same gas station burrito wrapper on the passenger seat. I checked the engine temperature. The gauge sat at the bottom, stone cold. My phone said 3:22 a.m., the same as when I'd walked into the diner. And then I noticed something that made me stop breathing for a full 3 seconds. The odometer. I reached for my logbook, the one I fill in every 50 miles, checked the last entry, and then I checked the current mileage. I had driven 40 miles since that entry. 40 miles I have no memory of. 40 miles that happened somewhere between 2:17 a.m. when I felt the cold hand on my neck and 2:31 a.m. when I first saw the sign. 14 minutes, 40 miles. I started the engine. I did not look in the side mirror. I did not look back at the diner. I pulled out of that lot, and I got back on the highway, and I drove with every light on in the cab, both hands on the wheel, until the sun came up over the mountains, and Las Vegas broke across the horizon like a fever breaking. I quit long haul 2 weeks later, told my dispatcher it was my back. He didn't push it. That was 7 months ago. Last week, I was driving my daughter to school, 7:30 in the morning, full daylight, residential streets, and she was talking about something, a test, a friend, I don't know. And I realized I had no memory of the last 4 blocks, and the coffee in the cup holder was cold, like it had been sitting there for hours.